G'day guys, Nick and Jack from the Unaffected podcast, bringing you the stories of the people affected by a loved one's disability.
Stay tuned for our chat with Lizzie Ward, wife of former multiple speedway world champion Darcy Ward, who sustained a spinal cord injury while riding in Poland. In this episode, we cover what life was like before and after Darcy's life-changing injury and all the challenges they faced as a couple following.
We also get a fresh perspective on parenting a newborn with a partner who is a quadriplegic and all the challenges that brings. G'day and welcome. You're listening to The Unaffected podcast where we bring the stories of those affected by a loved one's disability and how they're impacted. Brought to you by CareMatch Australia. Visit carematch_Australia on Instagram for all your caring needs. My name is Nick and with me as always is Jack, and today we have a special guest with us.
Today, guys, we have Lizzie Ward, who is the wife of Darcy Ward, a good mate of mine. Darcy was two-time under-21 world champion for speedway. He had a 6-year career in Poland and England, and I think a bit of a stint in Sweden as well, and was touted to have the potential to be the best rider that the sport had ever seen until a tragic crash in August of 2015, which left him quadriplegic.
Welcome, Liz. Thanks for coming in, having a chat.
No problem.
Righto, so I may as well just jump straight into it. So tell us, how did you and Darcy meet?
Wow. I had been out with some friends in a nightclub. It was about 4 a.m. We ended up all leaving, and my best friend the next day said, "Oh, who were you chatting with last night?" I said, "I'm actually not too sure." He said he rode speedway. So we started to Google speedway, and I'm from Bournemouth. The next suburb over is called Poole. And Darcy, of course, rode for Poole Pirates. So that came up and all the rider profiles came up, and we started trawling through, and I said, that could be him. I'm not too sure. I might have had a few drinks. And I sent him a message and I just said, "Hey, did I meet you last night?" And he just said, "Maybe, why?" And I was like,
Smooth. Darcy.
okay,
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't you.
Yeah.
As time went on, actually, it wasn't him, no.
Yeah, right.
He was, in fact, in Latvia racing, so he wasn't even in the country.
There you go.
But just reckons he saw my profile and hooked me in.
Yeah, true love story. That one, yeah. So what was life like prior to Darcy's accident for you guys?
It was busy. He was away racing at least 3 times a week with Poland, Sweden, and the World Championship rounds. I rarely went with him. I would to the World Championships, but not to Poland. It was much more serious there. So I just didn't tend to go. When he was home, we just did normal couple-like stuff, I guess. Meals, cinema, arcades, holidays.
Yep.
Pretty cruisy, really. It was. Okay. He lived with his team manager in a big sort of farmhouse. So we would ride the bikes, go up and see the horses, and he was real social. And because there was a few other riders there, I guess we were always kept pretty busy.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there's something I don't think I've ever asked you is where were you when you found out about Darcy's accident, and how did you find out?
Darcy and I were actually on a break. That was in the July. He had his accident in the August. It was sort of a break that was turning into a long-term thing. So I had moved back home to my parents' house, and I actually remember being in the bath and I got a Snapchat from a fan saying, "Oh my God, Darcy's had a huge accident. Is he okay?" I hadnhadn't seen anything. I tried to switch off, to be honest, because of the break from Darcy. So I hadn't seen anything, heard anything. And straight away I started sort of looking, and I messaged Monster Joe and said, "What's happened?" And he called me that night and said, "He's had a huge accident and it's not looking good." I remember just putting my phone down in the bath and just started bawling my eyes out. My mum was upstairs putting the washing away, and I got out and I said, Mum, Darcy's had a huge accident. I don't know, I feel like I need to go. I don't know what to do. And yeah, it was actually a really sleepless night, that one.
Pretty surreal sort of thing to find out.
Yeah, what a way to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
So initially when Monster Joe had said that things weren't looking good, did you know the extent of his injuries? Or at that time, what were and in the days following, what were your expectations around how much Darcy may recover or what his future might look like?
Well, Darcy obviously couldn't contact me. He had a surgery straight away after his accident when he arrived at the hospital. So Joe kept a really good way of keeping me in the loop. We had a 2-hour conversation that night, and he just said, look, he's going to need you and he's going to need your help for a long time, and you just need to sit and wait for his call because he's going to call. He wants you. So I just waited for that, and I think the outlook initially was okay, he'll be all right. Darcy's never had too big of an accident. It's just sort of a scare at the moment. But as the hours went on, as time went on, and the conversations with the close group of people were going on, it was okay, actually this is he's in the shit here.
So you mentioned that you and Darcy were on a break when he had his accident. I mean, I know me personally, I had a partner at the time of my accident and that didn't work out. I know a lot of people were in that same situation after an accident. Their relationship breaks down. What made you sort of go to be by Darcy's side and go the opposite way to then, I guess, rekindle things and reform that relationship when I guess, you had every reason to not do that and to go the opposite way? What made you want to go back?
I think it had been such a short period of time since we sort of said we were going to go on a break and perhaps think about calling it quits. It was just too much with his racing. So I think the short period of time, to be honest, I was still in love with him. It wasn't enough time for me to have gotten over him. I was just starting a new job, so I hadn't really settled down myself back with mum and dad and a new job, and obviously I hadn't found anybody else, and I was still pondering over him. So I think my initial was I need to be there, I need to comfort him, I need to help him and do whatever I can, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
And initially when he did have his accident, he was in Poland for 5 or 6 days afterwards. They weren't letting anybody in the hospital. It was should I go to Poland or should I wait for him to come to England? And I waited for him to come to England. And the day he landed, I went to the hospital, and I knew my dad wouldn't be very happy about it. And my mum actually said to me, just go, and I'll worry about your dad.
At that stage, had you had any exposure to disabilities? And early on, did you have any expectations about what helping Darcy might look like?
No, not at all. I actually, before Darcy, didn't even know someone in a wheelchair. I don't think I've actually even met anyone in a wheelchair before Darcy. I had no idea. It's not just you lose feeling in your body. It comes with a whole array of different things. Bladder, all your bladder, bowel function, nerve pain, your mindset even.
At that stage, Darcy wouldn't have been transferring out of his chair on his own or into cars.
When we were in England in the hospital, it was about 6 weeks after, we had already known the extent of his injury, but it just hadn't been fully confirmed by the doctor because we were waiting for the swelling to go down. Yeah. And see how that sort of left us. But he had a partial sever of his spine, so it was never probably going to be a good outcome, but it was maybe going to be how good can we get from the bad.
As you learnt more about that stuff, did it ever you second guess your decision to come back or anything as you learnt more of the underlying things that I guess, maybe at the start you would have said, okay, he's going to be in a wheelchair, I can accept that. But as you found out the extent of it, did you second guess going back and think again that maybe it was just too much?
No, I didn't second guess myself, but I remember having a very in-depth conversation with someone who was very close to Darcy, and they were almost trying to put me off, and they sort of said a number of things to me, like, you're never going to be able to move to Australia, you'll never get a visa, what do you think you're going to do, get a job? What, are you going to marry him? You're never going to have kids. Is that something that you're all okay with? And I actually remember him saying, when you do have children, I hope you turn around and call me the biggest word and prove me wrong. And here we are.
Yeah. Giving him a call.
You know who you are. Yeah, but no, I definitely didn't second guess myself. It was so full on from the beginning. I don't think, to be honest, I really had time to think about it.
Yeah, true.
How much care did Darcy get in England? Because I know when he moved back to Australia, you were that support role for him. What were you doing for him in England?
In England, Darcy was fortunate he had private healthcare. So we were actually in a private hospital, which at the time we thought was the worst place on earth, but it turns out it was one of the best places on earth. The doctors, nurses, everything were amazing there, sent me on courses for hydrotherapy, manual handling, like body management, so like learning all about the pressure points and things like that. So to be honest, I didn't really do a great deal initially in England. It was towards the end of his hospital stay, we started going back home on a weekend to my mum and dad's house, and that was more of like the hospital getting ready for their release, sort of trialing out if he's okay with me without a doctor or a nurse. And then when we arrived into Australia, we went straight to the Princess Alexandra in Brisbane, and they said he would have to stay there. So we started doing the stay thing, and he got a pressure sore, and we said, this isn't going to work. So he came home for a whole year, and I was his full-time carer for everything for that first year, and for a long time after that.
I didn't know you did formal training over there. It's awesome that they helped you out like that, because I remember when I first met you guys in January 2016, and Darcy had left the PA, and because he didn't jump through the rings that the health system needed him to, he wasn't eligible to access the funding for support. So you were his full-time carer without much help from anyone. How do you deal with Darcy was your boyfriend, your partner at that time, that blurred line of when you're his carer and when you're his partner? How does that affect the relationship?
It's sort of become a routine. We definitely didn't merge the care and the relationship thing into one. It was still very, okay, I'll get you up, we'll get up. And then it's the injury part gets forgotten about. You know, when he was racing, I still did all the things that what I would say a normal partner does, like his washing, cooking, tidied up his bedroom. So in that aspect, it was only really the getting up and going to bed sort of stuff that I had extra to do. So it just become part of our routine, really. And then the rest of the day, we just went about how we always used to.
What about activities during the day? Because obviously you wouldn't be able to do the same things you said you were doing before the accident. Did that take a lot to adjust to try to find new activities to do, or do you ever feel like you were missing out on things you wanted to do because you sort of weren't able to?
Yeah, sometimes I think, especially coming to Australia, you know, we don't go to the beach perhaps very often. Like, the beach is not an accessible place for a wheelchair person. I don't really feel like I've missed out. For the first few years of our relationship, when we arrived into Australia, it was such a spiral of things. Like, we moved here, we bought the dog, then Darcy got his driving license, we bought the house, we bought a car and got engaged, then we got married, and it was really only just after we got married I actually sat down and said to Darcy, everything's just hit me. Like, nearly, you know, we got married in 2019, so 4 years on, that's when it all hit me. Like, life isn't actually, it's normal for me now, but it's not normal for other people.
Just take a second to look back and sort of see,
I think we were so busy, I just didn't have time to think about it, really.
Was that ever something that, say, he ever struggled with feeling like he was taking something away from you? Because I know, like, personally, I've always almost felt not guilty, but just worried about that sort of, that I'd hate to see my partner or someone that I care, whether it was friends, family, whatever it is, not be able to do something sort of because of me, I guess. Was that ever something he struggled with or that came between you guys at all?
I think no, because when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. So it was very much live in each other's pockets. And as time went on, things got easier with, like, we started to get a knack for things and a routine and faster at doing things. And I think the balance sort of started to switch as we got into a routine. I then started to find my feet with getting friends. I had my visa approved, so then I was able to get a job.
Darcy's gotten stronger too, so I suppose
and
day to day he doesn't need you as much now. He can transfer in and out of his own car and drive. And
we were going to the gym making strides 3 times a week. So when he first had his accident, and probably for the first we were going 3 times a week. So it was like, it became a good balance.
He didn't cancel as much when you were bringing him, by the way, Darcy.
He always has an excuse. At the moment, he does.
There's a good excuse at the moment. So you're saying that in the beginning it was a bit of a waiting game, with the swelling to go down, and there's that 12-month window that doctors often talk about, as far as within that 12 months, some people make spontaneous recovery and others don't, depending on the severity of their injury. Did you notice any changes in Darcy as that you got closer to that 12-month window and the reality set in that the paralysis is likely going to be long-term?
I think we knew way before then that it was long-term. After we saw the doctor in England at that 6-week mark, after he had had another scan, and he basically said nothing's changed, we took that as this is it. And all we can do now is work on what does work and try and make the things that do work better and stronger, and go forwards with it, because you can't sit around wondering ifs and buts. You know, what if I had this, or what if I had done that right, and if anything would be different for him. I don't think it would be. His x-rays and his scans are really quite an eye-opener.
He's such a tough character, Darcy. I haven't seen him have too many hard days, which blows my mind and it's so common in a lot of the people that I see in the doors at making strides, like facing such adversity and such an uphill battle, and they still manage to get on with it and have such a positive outlook. Behind closed doors, have you had to play a little bit more of that emotional support than, I suppose, what we have seen? Sometimes.
If everybody has a bad day, whether you're in a wheelchair or not, everybody has a bad day. I think Darcy's keeps his feelings to himself a lot of the time and works out his own way to overcome it, whereas perhaps other people would prefer to talk to someone. He isn't like that at all. And on the down days, we sometimes we'll go have a barbecue up at our favourite spot, Tambourine Mountain. Other days we just sit around and I just say, hey, you're still eating, you're still blinking, you can still get around in a manual chair, there's plenty of people worse off than you. Get over it, basically.
Did you ever have that, I guess especially at the start, where he would have had the whole speedway community, sending him messages, doing things for him, getting behind him? Did you ever have that support? Because obviously it would have been a massive impact on you as well. Did you have people sort of looking after your mental health and checking on you as well? Or did you sort of have to almost feel guilty and think, I've just got to deal with this, Darcy's going through this hard time, I've just got to suck it up and deal with it?
Yeah, I will say the speedway community, everyone always thanks me for what I do for Darcy and for being with Darcy, and I don't want to be thanked for it. Like, if you love someone, you love someone.
You just do it.
At the end of the day, no, obviously my parents were a huge support network and still are for both of us, but otherwise not a great deal. I've got a few really good friends and they still check in on me now, ask if I need anything. But no, I think we'd have much more support if we lived in England. We would be near my family and all the speedway community. But here's home. So
I suppose
I suck it up.
The emotional part of the relationship as well is the one that is like relative to the physical part of a relationship, the least affected as well. Like, so Darcy's still just as capable now of being that emotional support for you as he was prior to his accident. Have you noticed any changes? Has he maybe got a little more emotionally supportive than he was when he was focused on his riding?
Yeah, definitely. He when he was racing, Darcy was very, I don't like the word selfish, but very me, and actually didn't really worry about what's going on around him or what's affecting anyone else around him. But now, pretty much since the day his accident happened, he changed. He's very much more caring and checking in on me and making sure I'm okay. He knows it can be hard for me sometimes. He knows it's hard, me being away from home, my family. But no, he's good.
So I guess that's one of those positive things that comes from from that.
I tell him that all the time.
Yeah.
There's one good thing coming, you're much nicer now.
Him and I have actually talked about this. So I remember one day asking Darcy, pretty shit situation you're facing, is there anything positive to come out of it? And he said that he was really focused. So he was a bit of a rat bag, Darcy, and was coming back from a 1-year suspension in 2015. So he come back to Australia. He was training hard and started taking the sport really seriously, and I think trying to live up to the expectations of him that the speedway community had really put on him. In doing that, he did put your relationship to the side because he wanted to be focused, and obviously having a partner is a little bit demanding on his time. And he says that had he had that long career and become more focused and fulfilled that potential, there's a chance that your paths might not have rejoined. So if anything, he's grateful for the accident because it helped him from losing what he says is the best thing that's ever happened to him. Are there any positives like that to come out of Darcy's accident for you?
Yeah, there is. I agree with him totally. Our paths definitely wouldn't have crossed again. I think some of the positives that come out was every day we're stronger, and every single day we're learning different lessons, and sometimes they're more challenging than others. He's become much more family orientated. If it wasn't for his accident, we wouldn't be living in Australia. Well, I probably wouldn't be living with him full stop, but definitely not in Australia. Yeah, there is many positives, and he's still alive and kicking. Not kicking, actually.
Yeah, definitely not
still alive
kicking.
and kicking, if anything.
Kicks me on the treadmill sometimes, actually.
He's become a better person in himself, I think.
What were say beforehand when you're watching him win in Speedway and, celebrating those milestones with him, what was different about watching him win that compared to watching him maybe achieve something in rehab post-accident, get that little bit stronger, do that one activity that he couldn't do before? What were the ones that were sort of, I guess, better to see or hit home harder? What was better?
I think from the minute, and if you ask him, he definitely would agree because he's told me before, the second I went in that hospital room, he said I became his drive, because when I walked in there, he was in a head brace, and I think I just walked in there and went, wow, look at you. And the next
looking
day,
good.
The next day, he didn't get back in that chair. He wanted a different chair. And it became like that every single time. It was like I remember when he brushed his teeth for the first time by himself again. That was a huge thing. And the first time we went for dinner out of the hospital, that was another huge thing. And the things just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I remember when he was learning to drive, I was like, oh my God, like, I can't get in a car with you. But sure enough, I did. And then we went, and then things just kept evolving. He learned to drive. Then we went to the skid pan and he learned to skid. And then he started doing the car transfers. He's always perfected and gone further, I think. And now he does a lot of training at home and stands up at home. And I think he just keeps on evolving. So
for you, though, watching them, how does that hit for you, watching him do those things compared to watching him be world champion of speedway? It's much different. Obviously, not the excitement, but you don't have the same adrenaline as when he was racing. But for me to see him hit those, it's more of an achievement. On the track, sometimes I didn't even look because I knew he was going to win. And now I'm always watching because I'm always waiting for him to do more. And it's exciting. And for me, it's like one more step to independence, one more step to doing the next thing together. Different sort of challenge.
Yeah, it's hard to explain that one, to be honest.
At Making Strides, as you both know, standing after a spinal cord injury, regardless of a person's functionability, is part of the program there, mostly for bowel and bladder function and for bone density, which is impaired after an injury. Do you remember the first time that you saw Darcy stand after his accident, and how'd that make you feel?
I forgot how tall he was.
That's what everyone said.
And it was the nicest thing having we call it a stand-up cuddle. A stand-up cuddle. That was really nice. And I remember then his blood pressure starting to drop, and then he had to
passed out in your arms.
Pretty much passed out. But no, that was quite an amazing. There's been many amazing things that he's done that's sort of left me speechless, really.
Is there one milestone since the accident that stands out for you that you know really stands out in your memory?
Our wedding day when he stood up. Everyone sort of said, oh, is he going to stand up at the aisle or is he going to sit down because that's the person you're marrying? And I said, no, he's going to stand up. And it just felt so special just seeing him standing at the end waiting, and he stood up for so long.
I was genuinely nervous because prior to that, his blood pressure tolerance in standing was probably 5 to 10 minutes at best, and he stood up for the whole ceremony. That was a huge one. Yeah, for me, like as his mate, and what my job at Making Strides has allowed me to do, that's at the top of my list too.
And I think I have one more. It's when Charlie was born, and obviously he had to drive home from the hospital, and it just felt so surreal, strapping a little 6'9" little boy in the car, and Darcy getting in and driving us, and I'm obviously hurting after labour. And that was another really surreal moment.
Yeah, I guess it almost makes those moments more special post-accident. And then, I mean, those moments for anyone's special, getting married or having a kid, but knowing what's gone into getting to those moments, whether it's, all the training at therapy that's gone into standing at the aisle, or all the strength training that's gone into being able to drive or transfer into the car to be able to get to those achievements, is something that I think probably does make it that little bit more special.
There's a lot of I can't believe this moment.
Yeah, it really hits home a bit harder. So.
I think that's something that I love seeing as well, is you can work with athletes and you might help them run faster or jump higher, but it doesn't have the significance to them that what I see when people are learning to transfer into a car again, and especially like a young guy like Darcy and yourself, and the freedom that gives you as individuals and as a couple. All of a sudden you're not having to help him in and out of a car. He's not having to wait for you to go places. Knowing the significance that has on people's makes my job bloody awesome.
So what does life look like for you these days?
Busy. I've stopped working at the moment because we've just welcomed our little boy into the world.
Yeah, little Charlie.
Yes, he's very lovely.
Yeah.
So actually we're just once again learning a new routine and finding the easiest way to do stuff and finding the easiest way for Darcy to help and setting things up in a way so that he can help. There's definitely been some heartbreaking moments watching him not be able to do stuff. But there's also been some of the most amazing moments watching him do some of the things too. So yeah, life's busy and a big learning curve at the moment and a sleepless learning curve.
How was that process for trying to have a baby? It probably wasn't the way, I guess, anyone dreams of trying to become a mother or a parent. Was it ever nerve-wracking or frustrating or any of those things?
There was a time we did IVF, second round we got Charlie from. So after that first failed round, it sort of felt like, oh my God, like it's just dawned on me, we may not ever be able to have children. And that was quite a hard pill to swallow, and we were like, we'll just give it another go and see. And then I think in the run up to the labour and of Charlie being born, it was all down to preparation. I just knew I needed to be organised so that Darcy could get around if I couldn't come home for 3, 4, 5 days. We don't have really any support at home. With COVID, my parents can't be here, so my mum had planned to be here to help just do the day-to-day things.
Yeah, true.
So it was about preparation and making sure that when we got home, everything was ready to go.
Yeah.
And Darcy was okay if he needed to go home and spend a night at home by himself, or if the carer had to come in, it was okay.
This is a topic that I've had conversations with a fair few clients now. Primarily it's the guys with cervical injuries, so quadriplegics, that have had kids and are trying to find what they are capable of doing, what they are capable of helping with. And like you said, like some of them, it's really heartbreaking, the realizations that fatherhood might not look how they had expected it to look prior to their accident. As a partner of a quadriplegic father, is there any advice you can offer to the dads out there and dads to be that are living with paralysis about how they can support you as a partner?
Just make sure, I think, everything is as accessible as it can be, because I'm always cut on time. So for me to say, oh, Das, can you just grab a bottle? Like, those things need to be readily available. I think give them a chance. You know, people rush all the time around their kids because they start crying or whatever, but give him a chance to pick him up. Okay, it might take him 5 minutes, but next month it's only going to take 3 minutes, and after that it's probably only going to take 1 minute. And just be patient, I think. And just, okay, one of Darcy's jobs is to, unfortunately, take the shitty nappies to the bin, but it's one less job I've got to do. I change the nappy, he takes it to the bin.
I could imagine even doing that though, just to know you're contributing and helping in any way, because obviously there's a lot of things you can't do, but if it is something you can do, I know myself, if I was in that situation, it'd be at least, you know, you're contributing.
Yeah, he does what he can do. He gets the bath stuff ready, he gets Charlie's clothes up for the next day, make sure there's nappies ready next to the change mat, and
that's the
stuff like that, you know, just.
That's the advice I give to the guys. Like, obviously can't speak from the point of view of trying to do any fatherly tasks as a quadriplegic, but I think it's the same even for able-bodied dads. Like, it's pretty easy during those first few months, especially if the baby's breastfeeding, kind of sit back and be a bit of a passenger in the ride, but that quickly wears thin on the mums who are sleep deprived and emotional at that stage. And I think, as I just tell the guys, as long as they see you making an effort to do everything that you're capable of doing physically, that's going to mean the world to them, because you're doing what you can. You can't do more than that. And things are going to take a little bit longer, and it's going to be a pain in your ass, and it might be heartbreaking at times seeing how difficult it is. But if they see you making that effort, then they know you're in the parenthood trenches with them.
I also think picking up the pieces around, like maybe it might not be to do with the baby and you, but Darcy will run up the shop and go do go pick up a click and collect food shop, or he'll run up to the post office if I need something posting. He goes and does those things that I would normally do, but now I'm a bit time poor. I can't. So it's not necessarily all about doing stuff for mum and baby. It's about helping out with things he may not have done before, but now does.
Yeah. All right. So what is the one main life lesson that the injury and your experience since has taught you?
Expect nothing from nobody. Everyone who says we'll be there to help might be for the first little bit while it's a novelty, but they soon go away. And dedicate yourself.
Yep. Wise words, I think. All right. Well, thanks for coming in and talking to us, Lizzie. I think giving a lot of insight into what it's like to be the partner and new mother of someone with a disability, with quadriplegia, and some of the challenges faced, but also I guess some of the positive things that can come out of it, new aspects on life, and some of the good and bad that goes with it. So thank you.
Thanks for coming on, mate. Thanks for allowing me to be part of the journey too. Very good friends of mine, and I'm stoked to watch you tackle all the obstacles life throws at you, both specific to the injury and not. It's epic to watch. Next on the podcast, guys, we have Toby and Ella Cornelius. Toby and Ella's mum has multiple sclerosis, so they're going to be sharing with us their perspective growing up with a parent with a physical disability and their experiences with that.
You'll be able to find out when that's happening if you go to our Instagram at the @unaffected_podcast. There's a link in our bio to all our other social medias, to our TikTok, and also links to Spotify and Apple Podcasts where you can listen to this. We also have a Facebook page, The Unaffected Podcast. You can check that out. All the updates will be on that to find out who we're interviewing, when they're getting interviewed, and also when the episodes will be up to listen to.
Don't forget to slide into our DMs, guys, with any questions you want us to ask, or any potential people that you think might be good guests to have on the podcast. And also, if you shoot any questions through for Lizzie, then we can ask her and shoot those answers back through our socials.
Also have an email address, theunaffectedpod@gmail.com. I forgot to mention that one.
And don't forget, guys, Beyond Blue have given us the green light to offer their support. We're getting into the juicier episodes now, so if any of our podcasts bring up negative emotions and you feel like you may need support or want to talk to someone, contact Beyond Blue on 1300 224 636. Or go online to beyondblue.org.au and follow the navigations of their website to their online chat. Don't forget to check in on each other, and remember, it ain't weak to speak.
Great advice. Keep an eye on the Instagram. Find out when Toby and Ella will be on. Thanks, guys. Thanks again, Lizzie.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.